Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're kind of on this quest to uncover those God-given gifts. You know, those talents and passions that really light us up inside, the ones that make us feel really, really alive. And we're diving deep into this whole idea that these gifts aren't just like happy little accidents, but something more like woven into our being long before we even took our first breath.
Yeah, it's an exciting thought, isn't it? It's like we've each been given a hidden treasure map.
I love that.
And we're setting out to discover what makes us uniquely us.
Exactly. And you've brought some really fascinating material to kind of guide us on this journey, including this passage from 2 Timothy 1.8:14.
Yeah,
It seems to be a key piece of the puzzle.
definitely.
So where do we even begin?
Well, this passage in Timothy, it's all about reframing how we view our gifts. You see, we often talk about building skills through hard work and dedication,
Right.
which is true. But Paul suggests there's something much deeper at play here. He says these gifts are rooted in God's grace,
Okay.
given before we were even born. Just imagine that.
Wow.
Your purpose, your passions, all part of some grand design right from the very beginning.
Okay. That's a mind-blowing concept. So it's not just about discovering hidden talents.
Right.
It's more like stepping into something that's already there.
You hit the nail on the head. It's less about proving ourselves and more about understanding that we were created with intention. Each of us carries something unique and valuable, something that has the power to bring us joy and to really make a difference in the world.
That makes me think about those moments when you stumble upon a passion you never even knew you had. Like, where has this been all my life?
Right.
It just clicks.
It clicks.
Is that what it's like to connect with these God-given gifts?
Absolutely. That feeling of alignment,
Yeah.
of knowing you're in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
doing what you were meant to do, can be a really powerful indicator that you're tapping into something truly special.
Yeah.
Something divinely inspired. It's not always a lightning bolt moment, of course.
Right.
Sometimes it's a quiet sense of knowing, a deep resonance with a particular activity or purpose.
Yeah.
But it always comes back to that sense of rightness,
Yeah.
of being in tune with your true self.
But if these gifts are given, not earned,
Mm.
how does that change how we view our responsibility?
Mm.
It's not like winning a trophy we can put on a shelf and admire.
Exactly. It's more like being handed a rare and delicate seed. It's not something that you created, but you're responsible for helping it grow. The passage uses the term entrusted, which implies both a privilege and a responsibility.
Stewarding. So there's an element of careful cultivation,
Yes,
of making sure these gifts don't go to waste.
exactly.
But how do we even know what we're supposed to be cultivating?
That's where the real journey begins. It starts with recognizing the value of what we've been given,
Okay.
nurturing our talents, and not letting fear or self-doubt hold us back. And remember, these gifts aren't meant to be hidden away. They're meant to be shared with the world.
So it's not just about personal fulfillment. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. There's definitely more to it than just personal fulfillment.
Mm.
So how do we strike that balance? How do we honor both our own passions and this whole idea of using our gifts to make a difference?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the beautiful thing is the answer will be different for everyone, but I think it starts with like a shift in perspective.
Okay.
It's about viewing our gifts not as burdens or obligations, but as opportunities.
Opportunity to grow, to serve, to make a difference in the world around us.
Exactly. It's about seeing those God-given talents not as something we have to do,
Right.
but something we get to do.
I love that. So it's less about obligation and more about excitement. That's a game changer.
Precisely. When we approach our gifts from a place of joy and enthusiasm,
Yep.
it changes everything. It becomes less about checking things off a to-do list and more about pouring our hearts into something we truly believe in. It's like the difference between playing scales on the piano and like losing yourself in a beautiful melody.
Okay, that's a fantastic analogy. But what about those times when we feel like we haven't quite found our melody yet? You know, those moments when we're still searching for what truly lights us up inside?
Right.
How do we even begin to identify those God-given talents, especially if we feel a bit lost?
That's where the real adventure begins. This passage encourages us to actively seek God's guidance.
Okay.
It's about spending time in prayer, reflecting on our experiences, and really paying attention to those things that bring us joy, those things we're naturally drawn to. What are you curious about? What gets you excited to get out of bed in the morning? What activities make you lose track of time?
So it's not just about looking at what we're good at,
Mm.
but what lights us up inside, what makes us feel most alive.
Precisely. It's about that intersection of talent and passion,
Yeah.
where our natural abilities align with our deepest desires.
Right.
Sometimes those desires might surprise us. We might have to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Be open to trying new things to uncover those hidden passions. Think back to your childhood. What activities did you gravitate toward? What brought you a sense of joy and accomplishment, even if it seems small or insignificant at the time?
I love that you brought up childhood. It's like we have these innate inclinations,
Right.
these passions that were present even then.
Exactly. Those early experiences can hold clues to our deeper passions, those things that have always been a part of who we are.
Okay.
And even if those passions have evolved or taken on new forms as we've grown, there's often a connecting thread, something that can guide us on our journey of discovery. It's like we have this internal compass, and those early passions were the first signals pointing us in the right direction.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But sometimes life happens, right? We get pulled in different directions. We might start to prioritize practicality over passion security, over those riskier pursuits that make our hearts race a little.
It's a common experience, unfortunately, but this passage in Timothy, it reminds us that our gifts aren't meant to be buried or ignored. They're meant to be nurtured, developed, and yes, even shared with the world.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of identifying our gifts and viewing them as something entrusted to us, something to be stewarded and shared.
Right.
But what does that actually look like in everyday life? How do we take those gifts and use them to make a real difference?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll dive into right after this short break.
So before the break, we were talking about taking these God-given gifts and actually putting them into action.
Yeah.
It's one thing to identify them, but how do we actually use them to make a difference?
Well, it's about asking yourself, how can I use what I'm passionate about to serve others? And it doesn't have to be this huge dramatic thing.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes the most powerful acts of service come from those everyday moments.
So it's not necessarily about becoming a superhero overnight.
Right.
It's about finding those small, practical ways to make a difference.
Exactly. Think about what comes naturally to you and how that might be used to bring a little more light into the world. Like if you're naturally encouraging, maybe that looks like sending a heartfelt text to someone who's struggling.
Right.
If you're creative, maybe it's using your talents to make your community a little more beautiful. It's about finding those little opportunities to be a blessing
Yeah.
wherever you are.
It's like we each have these unique puzzle pieces, and when we use them to serve others, we start to see a bigger picture emerge.
Yes.
Something even more beautiful than we could have imagined.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the amazing thing is when we approach our gifts with that mindset, with a spirit of service, it not only impacts those around us, but it also brings a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment into our own lives. It's like this incredible positive feedback loop.
So it's not a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
It's not about sacrificing our own happiness to serve others.
Not at all. It's about recognizing that our own joy is often magnified when we use it to lift others up.
Yeah.
Remember that feeling we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
That sense of alignment when you're using your gifts in a way that feels right. That feeling is often amplified when we're living a life that's in tune with our purpose, a life that's focused on something bigger than ourselves.
This has been such an inspiring deep dive. We've talked about the power of recognizing our gifts, the responsibility of nurturing them, and the joy that comes from using them to make a difference.
Yeah,
It's a lot to take in,
it is.
but in the best way possible.
It really is. And the most exciting part is that this is just the beginning.
Right.
As we continue to grow and evolve, so too will our understanding of the gifts we've been given and the countless ways we can use them to live out our unique purpose.
So for anyone listening who might be feeling a little overwhelmed,
Yeah.
remember it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
Take your time, seek guidance, and don't be afraid to explore those incredible gifts that are already within you. You might be surprised by what you discover and the impact even the smallest act of service can have on the world around you.
Beautifully said. And never underestimate the ripple effect of those small acts of kindness, those moments when you share your gifts freely with the world. The world needs what you have to offer.
That's a beautiful note to end on.
It is.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us.
Oh, thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine.